saying goodbye. I love you too much now to argue, but not enough to try. And I thought about it, look into the future, and I can't deal with you. Yeah, I thought about it, look into the future, it's an easy thing to do. But it's all good, 'cause I feel a freedom all around me, and I know they will all support me, 'cause you know that I can't handle violence. So I feel that I move into silence, but it's all good for me. You don't have the password, so you won't see me grieve. Tell them you abused me, they will just believe. Yeah, I thought about it, you have to, but you know me, I just cannot tell the truth. much sadness and depression, so much anger and despair. Shattered hopes and dreams surround you. The outcome isn't fair. Didn't know when to begin with. So-called wisdom got us here. I shouldn't have to tell you all this, but just let me be clear. I will love you if you let me. I will be there when you call. I will love you if you let me. No, I won't let you fall. No, 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 no. No, I'm rough around the edges. It makes me nervous every day. But I would be there if you'd let me. But if you don't, I have to go away. I know you've had your share of heartbreak. Won't get through it all tonight. If you let the right ones love you, gonna be alright. So I will love you if you let me. I will be there when you call. I will love you if you let me. Never let you fall. I've been right here this whole time, reaching out with no success. Think you'd rather have my honest mistakes, this willful carelessness. Whoa. Tried so hard to bring you in. Tried so hard to make you mine. Cancer's here. Go inside. Made this trip so many times. Now can I see you all alone, all alone? Can I still reach you in your home? Arms outstretched into my soul. Build a house to fill the hole. Post on me and me alone. Build a temple she could call her own. No one is watching now. Should I try? Should I try paying homage to a bird? Blows on against this tree. They hung him where she'll hang me. No ropes, no nails, no matter still. She breaks my heart. She breaks my will. The whole world is watching now. Will you smile? Will you smile? I've been in your shoes. I walked a mile. And I do want to know you, not because I spent my life paying homage to her God. Making faces for her God. not afraid to speak my mind. I'm so strong, I've done so much growing up, and all I guess left behind. The things you say I do, not so far away from what you've done to us all. Rewards you get for your insecurities, the mighty stumble and they fall. Deep desire to become the victim, needed to rise above. Move as one in your unholy union and kill everything I love. Just concern yourself with the here and now, and light a fire on the earth. Fear and judgment and your prejudice have become the measure of what I'm worth. Can't wait to be free. All the hatred you bring me. Can't wait to be free. To be who we want to be. Can't wait to be free. The moments you had spent destroying me, like a river of deceit surrounding me. Nothing positive to what you've done now. Maybe that's why I cling to God and my gun. Masses bend to your will, they sing your torch song, but strength in numbers don't make it less wrong. So who's the victim now? So tied up in your selfishness that you can't even see. What you think you are, that's what you've made me. Why can't we be free? All the hatred you bring me. Can't we be free? To be who we want to be. Can't we be free? The moments you miserable fear made me pretty scared myself that I'll become you soon enough. Can't wait, babe. All the hatred you bring me. Can't wait, babe. Free to be who we want to be. Can't wait, babe. Free the moments you have spent destroying me. It's like a river of disease surrounding me. No, 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 no. Ooh, no, no, no. Can't wait to be free. Destroying me. No, 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 no. No, no. You'd cry yourself to sleep, pass up any opportunity, retreat like the war is lost. Escape no matter what the cost. You'd stare across a crowded room and wait for my eyes to catch you. You'd leave and you dream of me and cry for what cannot be. But you'd never tell me. You'd never tell me. The days filled with this blessed love, but there's something else building up. You can't get your comfort back. The pressure is rising fast. You'd never tell me. You never tell me. You never tell me. You never tell me. The distance is so much farther now. I hurt you and I don't know how. You told all your friends you're confident, and you bowed for the waiting audience. But you never told me. You never told me. And now we're both alone. We're too far gone to ever make it home. You'll admit you played a part. You'll regret what tore us apart. But you'll never tell me. You'll never tell me. You'll never tell me. Thought I'd find myself here. Wasn't supposed to be. Real things I had to come to. When I hit bottom, that's when I found you. All these ghosts trapped inside our heads, our own worst enemy. The problem's too big and the skies are too gray. I look at you and it all melts away. And I don't care if it's hard as hell, I will walk beside you still. Through the darkness and through the rain, I can, I must, I will. 'Cause I want to be, yeah, I want to be with you. Back where you've been, turn and look where we will go. I know it hurts to start over once more. I promise it won't be the same as before. All the people who had our hearts left broken pieces behind, but we found that they've now become one. They fit together and we've become one. I don't care if it's hard as hell, I will walk beside you still. Through the darkness and through the rain, I can, I must, I will. 'Cause I want to be, yeah, I want to be with you. lived a life that made me proud. Took me farther from the crowd. Punished for my honesty, for my love of my country. These things I think are not allowed. She lives a life of vanity. She talks in sound bites from TV. Think she's kind and reverent, enlightened and so tolerant. She'll kill you if you disagree. She said, open your heart and love my bigotry. Open your mind and think exactly like me. Don't you know the only way you'll be free is if you follow me? She says, your ideas are not that good. I don't get all the stuff I could. You were born a certain ways. You should work and pay so I can have the things I want. And I'll attack you if you fight, 'cause you shouldn't have the right. Punish you for honesty, 'cause right now this is my country. I hate you 'cause you're on the right. She said, open your heart and love my bigotry. Open your mind and think exactly like me. Don't you know the only way you'll be free is if you follow me? If you follow me. And I will steal from what you've earned, so we don't have to do our share. And I will call it charity. It's only just, it's only fair. Open your mind and think exactly like me. Don't you know the only way you'll be free is if you follow me? Is if you follow me? Is if you follow me? Be yourself, she said, and they all will love you. Be yourself and they will come. It's what I did, and all I saw was sorrow. I'm sick of crying. Now I'm numb. act the same as everybody else and hide anything that's weird. Disconnect and play on their fears, and you'll suddenly reveal the solution. Here's the problem: pollution of the world. The solution is the problem. Look at what we have become. With all our temporary fixes till trouble do us part. Strength is weakness and fear is confidence. Your wounded mind betrays your heart. The solution is the problem. The pollution of the girl. The solution is the problem. Look at what we have become. Honesty is a lonely policy with so many liars, flags unfurled. If a boy is hurting, then change the boy, but if girl is hurting, change the world. Solution is the problem. Pollution of the world. Solution is the problem. What the hell have we become? When we've been here 10,000 years and bright shining like the sun. No less days to hide behind our cliche than when we first begun.
Take, for example, the woman who is unduly critical. No one is safe from being ripped apart by her cutting remarks. She always seems to have some sarcastic comment to make. Everything she says belittles someone or something. The result? People avoid her.
Strikes me now how beauty is relative. You were pretty for a nice girl. Controlled by another whore. 'cause we hate them. Hatred is evil. We celebrate how much they hate us. Tell us to open our hearts and our minds and close theirs to all opposition. Pay for their protest, sanction their envy, feed them and clothe them and give them the freedom. They teach their children that we are the problem. The cycle repeats till we're all at the bottom. We pay the bill, we pay it all. We give them rope to hang the providers of it all. The problem, fight fire with fire, makes us as evil as the ones they admire. The other option, a Christ-like direction, just gets us murdered with no resurrection. Gathering masses attached like a cancer, cause held aloft by musician and actor. Our hope of redemption is violently ending, because revolution is trendy and trending. You have created what you hate. Out of control, and I fear it's going to be too late.
Hi, I'm Mark Scudder, and this is the commentary for my album, The Solution is the Problem. I called it The Solution is the Problem because I think the phrase succinctly describes a lot of the things that I've seen that are going wrong with the world. Like a lot of songwriters, I find that negative things, struggle, pain, loss, conflict, translate well lyrically. I don't know if it's universally true, but I find it difficult to write about positive things. So I have found that this theme, the solution is the problem, is sort of running through a lot of my writing. So what does it mean exactly, the solution is the problem? It applies to a few different things, which is why it's a great theme, because it's kind of universal, but it makes it a little more difficult to explain. I'm sure I'll talk about it during most of the tracks on the record, but just as an overview, I'm using it to refer to those situations in which you have to do something that isn't the best possible thing to solve a problem, or when you feel like you have to do something that you shouldn't do. It's more than just jumping through hoops or cutting through red tape or saying if you can't beat them, join them, because that's really a cop-out. The album does go there in places, like in the last verse of Alera, but overall I think the message is just how frustrated I am with it all, and I'm disappointed at how bitter and angry it's made me. I'll give you some examples I've used in the past to illustrate the theme. For example, if you want your family to have a better life, you work more hours, which takes you away from them and decreases your quality of life. Am I saying that you should just sit at home on the government dole and play Xbox with them? Of course not. But I've seen a lot of people, men especially, who are married to their work and end up having horrible relationships with their spouses and children. And that's never a good thing. Actually, a better example of the theme is how I had to explain that, disclaiming it in a feeble attempt to ward off any critics who would jump down my throat for not being quote-unquote conservative enough. People should listen and comprehend before they criticize, but they don't. And instead of being able to hold them to the responsibility, we have to disclaim everything. We have to put up walls and shut people out. And we become bitter, angry, and paranoid, just like the people we tried to protect ourselves from. The solution is the problem. I recorded this album entirely by myself over a period from November 2011 to July 2012. The only exceptions are two group vocals or gang vocals on Moving to Silence and Occupied, and one or two backing vocals that my friend Dave Neslick recorded. I found that for a lot of reasons it was difficult to get the help I would have liked to have in recording and producing and marketing the album. I'm a horrible salesperson, and social media has actually made it harder for me to get the word out about what I'm doing. Any social media expert will tell you you need to friend or follow thousands and thousands of people and interact with them on a regular basis before coming out of the closet, if you will, as a content creator. But I've never really been good at making friends, especially friends I can't see in person or talk to on the phone. Fragile egos combined with the power of the internet essentially creates barriers to content distribution. In other words, if I'm not good at making friends or small talk, which I'm not, then it doesn't matter what I am good at. The new music distribution channels require me to be good at something I'm not, never have been, and may never be, in order for what I'm actually good at to be heard. That's the problem, and there is no solution other than to shift my focus from the music to being a superficial, agreeable social butterfly. The solution is the problem. And also, as a politically active and politically conservative person, I have focused my efforts mostly in conservative circles. The original intent of that was not to market a conservative product to a conservative target. It was more that liberal artist types left me behind a long time ago. Ideology that passes for liberal or leftist these days relies on a sort of pack mentality of anti-conservatism. Most of them wouldn't agree on exactly what tax rate, for example, the upper class should pay, or when it's too late to abort a baby, but they sure as hell know they hate Republicans. It also speaks to our insecurities as a society, They can't be in the presence of dissenting opinion without turning into shrieking extremists, satisfied with, name-calling as the entirety of their attack. I tried for years to exist in liberal music circles, and I was either shouted down or subject to the soft bigotry of not being considered for opportunities, friendships, gigs, production work, as they whispered to each other about how weird I was. The problem was I needed word of mouth and support from other musician types to do what I really wanted to do. The solution, according to them, was to stop being conservative and start parroting their ideology, which is what I would, what they think I should do if I want it bad enough. So, again, the solution is the problem. That's left conservatives, who seem not to care about music on the whole, at least from what I've experienced. There seems to be a small niche market for amateur musicians who write what is essentially patriotic praise music, but that sort of thing doesn't interest me at all. To top it all off, liberals have so abused the notions of unfairness and victimhood that now even most prominent conservative new media figures are quick to accuse their own of it, calling, I've been called entitled, like I feel that I'm owed something, and I'm not, other than to let the free market work. In reality, I don't want undeserved help from anyone, but I've been disappointed that activist conservatives on new media seem to have put aside the free market. They so vigorously defend otherwise, and are only paying attention to the cults of personality on our side. The problem is that I want people to know about my product and, through free market principles, decide if they want to consume it. The solution seems to be emotionally manipulating approximately 15,000 conservatives on Facebook and Twitter into thinking that I'm their best friend so that someday I can turn that into sales. The solution is the problem. The bright spot of all this were the dozen or so people who I genuinely consider my friends, who would hang out at the live streams I set up while recording and producing the album. This was a stopgap thing for me. I couldn't just disappear from social media for 9 months and then tweet, hey, my album is done. Nor could I get away with what celebrities do, just tweeting, going into the studio right now to rock, but offering no real content. As much as I didn't want to have my own face plastered all over the internet, as much as I didn't want to take the focus off the songs, I had to give in to this compromise. In the world we live in, we don't consider something a success unless hundreds of thousands of people participate. While it's tough not to believe that, I'm really grateful for the people who did participate. They turned a very lonely project of self-producing an album in a vacuum into something much more gratifying and enjoyable. I'd especially like to say thank you to Brian Glover, Brian Washington, Clay Hamilton, John Skeptura, Tim Knoyer, Diane Student, Colleen Gray, Shirley McGinnis, Jordana DeLugaz, Ardra Hull, Mike Granito, and Marie Evans. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, moving to Silence. I put this first on the album because a couple of people on the live streams suggested it would make a great opener. I didn't originally think so, but it does solve a couple of problems. First, it's really energetic, which is important on an album that has this many dynamics, Secondly, as much as I love this song, I don't think I'll ever really have the vocal range to sing it comfortably, and there was no one else to sing, so if the vocal grates on you in places, at least we're getting it out of the way. Moving to Silence was a phrase I found in a self-help book. There was a time in my life where I was looking to things like self-help books for answers, and I didn't find any. But this one particular one talked about this concept of how immature people react to conflict. They react in only one of two ways. They either lash out or close up. The author called this moving to violence and moving to silence. I should also mention that lyrically, this song is written from the other person's perspective. I say that because the album literally starts with me singing something, that sounds really cowardly. Things are getting hard, so I'm saying goodbye. Though I imagine the person speaking this has been all of us at times. But When this song was written, LiveJournal was big. We didn't have MySpace or Facebook or Twitter yet. So the language refers here at times to the internet in general. You know, you don't have the password, so you won't see me grieve. And I didn't want to put product-specific language in there. You know, today you could say, I've blocked you on Twitter, so you won't see me grieve. But I think that gives a very limited lifespan to the song, you know, and sort of a novelty feel, neither of which I want. So, you know, even though we had all this social media when the song was finally finished, you know, you don't have the password was about all I could bring myself to put in there. But I think it works. You know, passwords are pretty universal things even prior to the internet. The lyrics were pretty hard to come by. Sometimes I get ideas that a certain part has to sound a certain way and have specific syllables and sounds at specific places, you know, before I even get a lyric done. And you end up painting yourself into a corner because you feel so strongly about these abstract things. So from its inception, I knew how the lyric was supposed to sound, but I didn't have words, and that made it tough to write the right words to fit the structure. In fact, it was 2008 before it was finished when the first demo I had for this was done in 2003. And of course, it was one of those things that was finished in the span of an hour or less once I started. You know, you know, you're blocked, and then it all comes out. Coming up here, there's a big middle eight, or as I've called them in the past, you know, blow-up sections, where the arrangement gets really, really big and the song sort of climaxes. I'm not entirely sure why I like doing this, but apparently I like doing this. But it's a pain in the ass because you have to manage all these different dynamics, and especially if you climax the song prior to the solo, you have to keep it big to the end, you know, or make it even bigger. And this is where the middle eight starts right here, this big part.
It's all good for me.
For a lot of songs that I write, I always have this idea of how to do a bigger variation on the theme. And you see with this that the motif changes a bit in the middle eight. I'm still in the same key, but I'm putting this half-step motion in the chords to build a little, you know, to build tension. And also this climbing lead guitar part that comes in right here is actually from the original demo I cut in 2003. It just had this great tonality to it, and I've tried to reproduce it over the years and never could. So it's just it was a moment that existed, and thank God it was recorded. And that demo was slower and in a lower key, so it's been pitch shifted, you know, time corrected, and otherwise mangled to fit it in here. The gang vocal at the end here was something that just happened, you know, during one of the live stream recording sessions. I always kind of felt that just reprising the chorus wasn't going to be big enough, and so I just scribbled down a note on a piece of paper that there should be a background vocal, you know, something to the effect of "You're so strong when we're holding you up," you know, to kind of get in a jab at the irony of the pop feminist language. You know, feminism is like this pack mentality with a strong sense of community, but they use words like strong and independent to describe themselves after being accepted by the pack. My friend Shirley, who was watching that night, actually suggested the, you know, "You go girlfriend, you go" to fill out the line, and we worked together that night on the melody and harmonies. And then I asked fans to send me recordings of themselves singing the line to create a gang vocal. I think having a group of people saying "You're so strong when we're holding you up" really illustrates the point perfectly absurdly. So on that gang vocal is me, Dave Neslick, Laura Hobble, Scott Cole, and a conservative singer-songwriter from the Baltimore area named Lauren Young. And I am really grateful for those contributions. The end of that just blows the windows out now. I love it. Okay, so this is "I Will Love You If You Let Me." I wanted to keep the energy up at the beginning of the record. You know, having so many different moods and dynamics. This record was almost impossible to sequence. I didn't want it to go way down low for long periods of time. So I put "I Will Love You If You Let Me" here. The demo that I made of this in 2010 came out so well that I actually used it as the basis for this version. The original drum sampler programming here is virtually unchanged, but I moved it to a sample set that's played with sticks instead of brushes, because I wanted to get a little more pop out of it. The Hammond organ part that comes in later is also virtually unchanged from the demo. And the jangly electric guitar you hear in the middle 8 all the way to the end is also from the demo. I re-recorded everything else just to make it cleaner. I wrote this when I was living in South Carolina in 2010. I made a mistake in trusting a certain family member enough to move down there. And when I didn't get the support I was promised, I was 1,000 miles from home with very little money and no job, and the downturn in the economy was just hitting us down there at that time. So I scraped for work, and I played a few open mics, a lot of open mics actually. I was single, so it would have been nice to find someone down there to love, but I was down on Hilton Head Island, which is a resort town, and all the locals my age down there are just either hit on constantly by rich, older vacationers, and they were bitter and jaded, or they had already married the wrong guy and were only looking for someone to watch their kids, In either case, I'd never seen more walls, more boundaries, and more paranoia in my life. You couldn't get close to anyone down there. They'd already decided without even getting to know me that I was just like everyone else, and they weren't even going to be friendly. I also needed more upbeat stuff in my set. I like deep, slow-moving songs and ballads, and I write them easily, but not so much the upbeat stuff. So it became this sort of tongue-in-cheek thing, writing a really biting, accusatory lyric and wrapping it in this happy-go-lucky arrangement. But the lyric also has a lot of compassion, I guess it's tough love, saying, hey, look, I know you've had it rough, I know you're feeling sad, but your way didn't work. I've been arguing against marrying jerks my whole life, where were you? I've seen some of the most awful men rewarded with the most desirable women, desirable, of course, except for their taste in men. I've seen it all my life, except now there's a plurality of them that are divorced, but they haven't asked themselves if they've been going after the wrong kind of guy. The quote-unquote right guy doesn't have to be me. I also wrote this sort of in solidarity with all the other good guys who struggle, who aren't perfect, who can be easily outshined at a bar or at a show or at work by a guy with better manipulation skills, or who is less nervous. I have an anxiety disorder myself, so I know something about being a good person who can't always, demonstrate it when the pressure's on. And I think it's quite a waste if that's the determining factor in whether or not someone will love a person like that. I'd always meant to write a fourth verse for it, but the right words didn't come to me when the song was written. It got set aside until the very last possible moment, the night I recorded vocals for this version. A very funny writing session ensued between a few people watching the live stream that night and me. We got a fourth verse that I was happy with. It was like fourth or fifth draft, I think. I met the woman who would be my wife only 2 months after writing I Will Love You If You Let Me. I don't know if it had anything to do with sort of drawing this ideological line in the sand, but I do know reasonable boundaries can be attractive. It certainly marked a shift in my thinking, that I was doing what I could by the grace of God to be a good person. And if someone was going to insist on projecting their bitterness, cynicism, or anger on me, that wasn't my problem to fix, and I couldn't fix it even if I wanted to. I also know that there are people who will say and do anything to get another person in bed. So in the face of that sort of competition, the ultimatum in the song really doesn't have any teeth. But those people still won't be happy when it's all over. So I think there was a point there where I had to start protecting my own happiness over other people's. Okay, so this is Her God. I released a version very similar to this in May of 2011. I hadn't quite figured out at that point how to record an entire album in the new media universe and stay even slightly relevant. And so I decided to experiment with releasing singles. I had started a sneak preview sort of thing where I'd work on a song for a while, make a temporary mix or as good of a mix as I could at that point, and post the song publicly for 30 minutes or an hour, tweeting and Facebooking frantically in the hopes that people would check it out and give me feedback. And doing the same maybe a week later with an improved version until it was done. This attracted the attention of an internet radio show host in New York named John Brodigan, who had similar struggles with faith growing up Catholic, and like me, he didn't want to either fall in lockstep without being invested in it or take the trendy route, going to Wicca or the sort of evangelical atheism we see today from people like Penn Jillette and Neil Peart. John really loved the song, and I made several appearances on his show to promote it. But I think in the end, I sold maybe 6 copies. I knew I didn't want to be a novelty act, like Jonathan Colton or the Shoes guy. Both of them were rewarded, handsomely for their obligatory 15 minutes of fame. I just wanted to have good product out there, Still, it was pretty disheartening. I tried again later in the year by doing the same with I Will Love You If You Let Me, but not even Brodigan was really interested. And at the time that I was preparing it, the town in which I live in upstate New York was flooded badly from tropical storms coming up the coast, and people, we kind of all dropped any non-essential work to put the town back together. It was shortly after that, I was feeling like I wasn't going to be able to break through the general apathy for independent music, that I decided I should just probably record all my songs, every one of them that I could, and release them and just sort of let the chips fall where they may. I didn't want to just take the 2011 version of Her God and plop it down here. I had started this project by recording acoustic guitars for every song that I could ever want to release. And this is one thing I'd never done, recording all the parts at once. Recording with different setups, different mic positions, different times of the year, in different rooms, in different cities. You spend a lot of time trying to make one acoustic guitar recording sound like another, give them all sort of the same feel. Multiply that by the number of songs on an album and you go insane chasing sounds. So everything got new acoustic guitar tracks. I also redid the main vocal here because I had that much more experience singing it during live performances in the last year. I moved to a better orchestral sampler library that you're hearing now and made a few slight dynamics changes in the drums. But a lot of this is from the 2011 version. The goal with this project was to make sort of definitive versions of these songs, so I wouldn't feel, that I had to go redo them somewhere further along the line. I wanted to work at making them the best they possibly could be so I could consider them done and, sort of move on to other things. I don't like to George Lucas my work, and I already am doing that to a degree. I wanted this to be, sort of the last of it. The lyric here is about Catholics and maybe Christians in general, in my generation, growing up in the world they did. Our parents were essentially told that they would go to hell if they didn't force their kids into the religion. That led sort of to a mass exodus, if you'll pardon the expression, of kids, from the faith as soon as they were able to do so. I know I got out of there as soon as I could. There are still a lot of people nowadays who expect you to go to God through them, to demonstrate your beliefs to them. So I think the lyric is additionally relevant in those cases. I know that I had to want a relationship with God for myself, not for the sake of another human being, before it meant anything to me. There were quite a few demo versions made of this song over the years, and in the 2011 version, I had tried to go back and take the best ideas from each. That middle 8 back there with all the voices vocalizing is actually a recreation of a thing I did for a version I recorded in 2005, tuned way lower than this. I thought I was going to be releasing some drop-tune metal stuff at that point, and Her God was going to be the ballad on the album, I lost those sessions in a hard drive crash in 2008, so I had to go through and figure out what I had done in that section and how to reproduce it because I didn't have the original files or even stems at that point. In the case of this song, the middle 8 was simply an interlude and not the climax like in most of the songs where I do this. The climax at the end there, that third bridge or chorus or whatever you want to call it, that was a last minute thing in the 2011 version. I started by copying my vocal to a second track and using a pitch correction plugin to drag the notes around and create a new harmony. Then I sang that harmony on a third track and I added a few more harmonies. The original pitch shifted harmony sounded dark and kind of creepy, and for some reason I loved it, so I left it in. It's not mixed so it stands out, but it gives it a great feel, like almost an otherworldly feel. A lot of blue notes too, and that vocal still makes the hair, on my arm stand on end. So yeah, another sort of upgraded track. And Free is like that too. I originally released Free as a single in October 2010, and I got a little interest out of the Tea Party, but not really enough to drive sales. I was happy for the most part with the mix and the instrumental performances on it, and so a lot of that is maintained here. But this was a tough vocal for me because I have a tendency to go really nasal on E sounds, and this tune is full of E sounds because I'm holding the word free 3 times each chorus and the word me twice. So again, I sort of painted myself into a corner. I had 2 very helpful vocal coaches when I re-recorded the vocals for this record. My old friend Jordana Deluxe, who lives on Long Island, and an insanely talented pianist and vocalist in California named Colleen Gray. But my brain held steadfast, and I could not stop overpronouncing those nasally E sounds. As a compromise, I was singing Frey and May. Like, can we be Frey? It was less nasally, but it was awful. I hated it. I didn't want it to sound like, Frey. I tried to like it. I took a couple of weeks. I tried to live with it, but it kept bothering me. So at the last minute, the last night I recorded vocals, I find that if I sing it almost, too quietly, my E's come out more naturally. So I punched in a bunch of new frees in the choruses, and I'm actually really happy with them. So this song got written quickly. The chorus chords came from just messing around with my friend Dave. We've been friends forever and have so many inside jokes with one another. It's like knowing a second language, One of them is to, and I don't expect this to make any sense to anyone else, but one of them is, picking up a guitar, start playing some chords, and sing the most offensive, often scatological or sexual lyrics with a stoic, serious look on our face, and try and make the other person laugh, I had found those chorus chords, and I won't go into what I sang. A few days later, I had the verse structure done, and I just started jamming on it, sort of sitting with an acoustic guitar, singing whatever came to mind, even if it didn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't do that as much as I should, and I say that because it seems to work in a lot of cases. I had 2 things on my mind. I just had some trouble with a former friend who was sort of a megalomaniac, and I was looking for an outlet for my feelings about Barack Obama and his army of mindless followers. So I had a lot of emotion about hurtful people churning around inside me. I scribbled down some notes. I made a note when a line that I sung during this time sort of made sense, and I just remember, it was just a couple of hours. The lyrics went down really quick. But like I said, singing it was another thing entirely, and I tried in late 2008 and early 2009 to record vocals for it. They were just awful. I still needed the practice that I was going to get in South Carolina, performing live in a music scene that was filled with pros and, people who'd sold songs to names you'd recognize. That worked wonders on my vocal control, and so with Dave coaching me, I cut a reasonably good vocal in September 2010 for the digital single that was released in October. Dave was never satisfied with the E sounds, though, again, so it was something I wanted to look at again when I redid the vocals here. Free is sort of a production piece. It's huge and it has multiple sections and a lot of stuff going on, and plus this big middle 8 that holds the intensity up until the end. It's sort of funny. I remember when I wrote that middle 8, it originally sounded like U2 to me. So I called a buddy of mine whose favorite band is U2, and I said, "You got to come over and help me build up this part." But I was so excited building it up that I actually ended up not using him on the song at all. By the time he showed up, I'd finished it. So, because it was such a performance piece, a lot of the things I wanted to do with it got done on the 2010 version, and a lot of tracks carried over. The drums are exactly the same. A lot of the electric guitars are the same. The guitars in the middle 8 are the same. The acoustic guitars were re-recorded, like on every song, and the main vocal was re-recorded. There's also a new bass part because I was also trying to match bass guitar tone on the album as well. And I don't remember now, but I think I used a different orchestral sample library as well for the orchestra part here in the middle 8. Funny story about this song. A week before writing it, a local percussionist, with Obama buttons and stickers covering, all his bags and cases, he got a little drunk at an open mic and decided he was going to take me aside and tell me everything that was wrong with me. My playing, my songs, and everything. I was mostly playing bass for other people that performed at this open mic, but I'd also sit down and play a few of my songs. This is, of course, before I Will Love You If You Let Me was written, or Follow Me, the upbeat stuff. And it might have been before I had finished the lyric on Moving to Silence. But if not, it wasn't quite as upbeat as it is now. So anyway, this guy gets in my face and gives me a big to-do list of personal improvements. And at the end, he says to me, he goes, don't get me wrong, I like your music. It's just so slow and depressing. I can't drum to it. So a week later, I come in with Free. And it was hard to keep from laughing, because as soon as I started playing that fast, sort of groovy acoustic part in the beginning, looked at him and his eyes almost fell out of his head. He had this face on like, oh, I can drum to this. That experience also influenced the lyric, because it made me realize what conservative music was missing. It was missing emotion. Conservatives like to talk about facts and figures and point out logical fallacies. The charts and graphs don't make good rock lyrics. That's all there is to it. The benefit of a President Obama and the conservatives and moderates in the country, I realized, was that he wasn't just wrong on the economy or social issues, but he was doing it in a way that made us angry, made us scared, made us uncomfortable. So now, we have emotions, and we can write about them. And I thought, well, who's been doing this for decades? That's right, leftists. So I tried to structure the lyric around this idea that I was writing a protest song, a song about big, scary, overreaching government, Big Brother, keeping in mind how a left-wing lyricist would structure a lyric like that if he or she was writing a protest song, about a right-wing government. So I focused on the emotions, I focused on the fear, and I focused on big, wide-open ideas. Why can't we be free? That's all. I want to be free. When a leftist musician sings "Why Can't We Be Free," he's speaking of some supposed, prohibition put in place by Ronald Reagan or George Bush, or he wants to be free to get free health care or welfare or whatever. I wanted to see if I could get away with reversing the argument on them. And it worked, at least that night, because I didn't really spend a lot of time specifying who I was talking about. There's only that one line in there where I mentioned what Obama said about white people bitterly clinging to God and guns. To the casual listener, it must have sounded like an anti-Bush song. And to a certain extent, I kind of enjoy that. I've had to suffer the political leanings of almost every musician I've ever liked. That moment when you're reading about them on Wikipedia or whatever, and you discover they're just this hateful, bigoted, radical leftist who would probably ask for a CD back if he knew I'd bought it. So Free was sort of an experiment in a number of ways. An experiment to write a conservative protest song, an experiment to express partisan discomfort with using emotional language, and an experiment to see if I could write something a little more universal than a song that screams, this is about a specific person at a specific time in history and nothing else. So that's Free. Now we're hearing You'd Never Tell Me. I'm not sure if there's a lot to talk about here to fill this time. This is a long song. So the idea for this literally came out of a conversation I had one night with my friend Ardra. She lives in Texas, and so she can't come out and see me perform, and I can't afford to tour in Texas. Performing live in upstate New York is kind of depressing. I don't play a lot of covers. I don't play a lot of Southern rock. The covers I do play, few people are going to really recognize. And I wish that live music wasn't just something that annoys people who are trying to get drunk in a bar. I wish there were more small theater settings that had showcases for singer-songwriters, stuff like that. But beyond dreaming about it, it is what it is, and this is all we have. I was also single at the time, so you not only go into these things with the irrational hope that people will get what you're doing, but also with the irrational hope that one of them will be a pretty single young woman who would want to get to know you better. I'm no different than anybody else. I mentioned that to Ardra one night, and she tried to make me feel better by saying something like, oh, come on, Mark, I'm sure there are 4 or 5 girls at any of these things who would love to go home with you. Well, I understand that she was just trying to make me feel better, but there is that part of my brain, a little saboteur at work who immediately starts saying to me, well, there are? What did I do wrong? Why didn't they come up to me? Why didn't they tell me? Because look, I'm 6'6". I'm socially awkward. I have trouble talking to people. I'm anxious all the time. I don't play any Lady Gaga covers, all of that. Regardless of if it's fair, that screams serial killer to a lot of women if you just walk up to them. So I can't do that. So this got me thinking about communication. I said to her, that may be true, that there are people there, but they're not telling me. They never tell me. So that pretty much led directly to the lyric and the concept. I've always been around people who don't communicate really well, I guess, and this concept appears in other places, right? For example, Moving to Silence and the title track. But it used to be that people who couldn't communicate well were kind of left behind by people who could. These days there are so many people who can't communicate well that those who can are starting to get left behind. So it all comes down to who's the worst communicator, me or you, and the worst communicator wins. And I'm a bad communicator, but I'm not often the worst. So I wrote this lyric sort of playing along with Ardra's suggestion, and I found that I could take it through a whole relationship cycle. The first verse deals with lack of communication that leads to 2 people never talking in the first place. The second verse is 2 people not communicating in a relationship, and the third and fourth verses deal with the sort of lack of closure and forgiveness that in a perfect world, would happen between the 2 people, but doesn't. And I put this huge middle 8 in here for a few reasons. Like Alera, there's brooding anger here. It's human nature to feel helpless to change something that you can't change. It's frustrating to think you know exactly how to fix something and either you can't communicate it or the other person just won't listen. If I could get back all the hours I tried doing all that stuff in my life, I'd be a teenager again. A lot of us would. So there is sort of an element of drawing a line in the sand, like in I Will Love You If You Let Me. But it's more implied, like the song's existence itself demonstrates that these sorts of relationships are no longer acceptable to me. I also kind of wanted to stay in the chorus chords and do something different lyrically, which meant I also kind of wanted to do something different musically there too, and mark it off as a new section. But I also think it works in a musical theater sort of way, illustrating the point at which the 2 subjects in the song go their separate ways, and it's sort of dramatic and apocalyptic. So now in here, when it gets quiet, our protagonist is kind of singing across the chasm instead of across the bar or the bedroom. And the chasm can be completely figurative. It can be, unfriending someone on Facebook and avoiding them and not going to the same places. But it's still a chasm. I wish this song was shorter. It's quite an investment at 8 minutes, I know a lot of people have been conditioned to reject anything over 3.5 minutes long, but if it were only me, I'd be perfectly content with the song the way it is. It breathes where it needs to, it explodes where it needs to, and it makes the intended point, I think. In this third verse, there is a relatively recent lyric change where I took out the F word. The original stanza, conservatives plug your ears here. The original stanza was, you told all your friends in confidence and you bowed for your fucking audience. After a lot of searching for another appropriate or a more appropriate 2-syllable word with the stress on the first syllable, and you'd be surprised how quickly that cuts down on candidates, I decided on your waiting audience. I didn't change it because of pressure or anything from conservatives, though there are some grown men and women who still say things like, he called her the B-itch word, which is just ridiculous. There was a consideration of it being the only obscenity on the album. when all was said and done, and it's just kind of a shocking thing when there's nothing else remotely profane on the record. Also, I wasn't sure that it was the right word for conveying the point. This verse draws from experience with leftists I've dated who go into full-blown victim mode when the relationship ends. They have to make themselves feel better by creating something that was bigger or more important than the reason you actually broke up, to turn it into like an attention whore sort of thing. And like I said, with moving to silence, if you're a so-called minority group in America today, there's always an audience waiting to hear your stories of victimhood, even if you weren't victimized, even if you have it just as bad as everyone else. Everybody goes through breakups, obviously. Everybody has arguments, but I didn't have a waiting audience or a ready-made audience. I probably still don't have an audience, even with this record, I wanted to try and explain a little better what this stanza meant, and so replacing that word was kind of a win-win. Okay, so here's the positive song on the album. Here's the love song. I wrote this for my wife's birthday when we were dating in 2010. I met my wife on a trip home from South Carolina to visit, and in just a few weeks I had moved back home to pursue her, and 6 months later we were married. This was difficult for me because I don't naturally write happy songs. That's actually why the middle eight is in there. When I got back to South Carolina after meeting my wife, I was emotional about it, as you'd figure, right? I'm 1,000 miles away from home. I'm headed for 35, which if you work on the internet like I do, is the new 75. I was happy, but I was also scared, and I wasn't ready for her not to be the one, There was also a sort of mystical, if you will, aspect to it. We'd met once 15 years prior at a party, and we'd kissed. She went off to college the next day, and I never saw her again until that moment in July 2010. It helped to find her at a rally for a Republican congressional candidate we were both supporting, I've dated liberal women. The last thing they can tolerate for an extended period of time is a conservative boyfriend. So all this emotion was actually how that middle eight got into the song. I was back down south. I was sitting there somewhere strumming my acoustic in an open C tuning and vocalizing in sort of that high register, half happy, half sad way. And that's almost exactly translated into the middle eight of this song when it blows up. I was also using some unusual chords here in the verses. That archtop D chord that it begins with. I had just learned, believe it or not, after all these years, how to do an archtop C, which is like a normal C chord on a guitar, but with an extra finger over on the lowest string to fret a G, the fifth underneath the root, which gives the chord a lot more weight. And I started using that almost exclusively as my C. And here I moved it up a whole step, so the open strings that remain would be at interesting intervals, and that's why you get sort of that sort of D9 feel to it. Coming up here is that middle eight that I was talking about, and there's actually a lead guitar in here. And I wasn't sure yet what I was going to do in here, if I was going to do the rebel yell. So the lead kind of gets buried. I buried the lead. But I wrote this lead part during a live stream recording session. I had never done that before. Either a lead occurs to me before I've had time to play with it, and so then I kind of know what my fingers need to do, or I just end up noodling something over it. This was actually planned out. And that was a great night, because it's very satisfying. It took about 45 minutes to put it together and get to a point where I could play it comfortably. That all happened, live on the internet with people watching, which is kind of cool. And like I said, I wasn't sure if I was going to layer vocals over the second half, but I ended up doing that, so it's just sort of in there if you listen for it. When I did the vocals, I originally had, I think, 8 harmony parts in there. Dave was over, and we were just messing around. I think I ended up using 5 or 6. I didn't want it to stand out like a gang vocal, like on Occupied or Moving to Silence. Besides a gang of people singing that they love my wife is kind of creepy. The first version of this song sort of helped me settle on an acoustic guitar sound for the record. I recorded a version to give my wife on Christmas a few months after I had written it. And actually, I had to sneak over to my parents' house with a guitar, my laptop, my interface, and some mics, and record it there so she wouldn't know that I was working on it. And I did something that I'd always wanted to try. Instead of just close miking the guitar with an SM57 on the sound hole and a pencil condenser on the 12th fret, I also put a large diaphragm condenser mic above and out in front of the guitar. And there was just something about how that recording came out. Those are the nicest, most clear and crisp, sort of beautiful acoustic guitar tracks I'd ever recorded. So I was like, aha, I'm on to something. You've got to have like a room mic. And when I did the acoustics for the 2011 version of Her God and the aborted I Will Love You If You Let Me single, I set the same thing back up, but I used a pair of large diaphragm condensers up top so that the room sound would be stereo. And that's how I got this acoustic guitar sound on the record, which I absolutely love. It's also why I started by recording the acoustic guitars, because if I didn't get a good, consistent acoustic guitar sound that I could live with, I couldn't go forward, because so many of these songs are so dependent on that basic acoustic guitar part. It sort of drives the rest of it. And if I had been messing with it for the rest of the production sessions, I would have gone crazy. Nothing would have gotten done. Okay, follow me. I wrote this in a day after having an argument on Twitter with an idiot. I liked Andrew Breitbart, but one thing he did that really didn't work out long term was that he reposted or retweeted all of the nasty things people would say about him. And Breitbart was kind of a rock star in the conservative movement. So everybody who liked him started doing it too. And now it's the point where the only way for someone like me to get the attention of someone like Michelle Malkin, who I believe should be telling her audience that people like me exist, is essentially to call her a dirty name. That's the only way she's ever going to retweet me, is if I start attacking her. Great example of what I'm talking about when I say the solution is the problem, Anyway, I'd made the mistake of engaging one of these bigots who'd been attacking a friend of mine, who retweeted her as Breitbart would have. And she naturally went after me. But, as they often do after they're done attacking you, they beg you in mock sincerity to open your mind and open your heart. Now we all know that this is hypocritical. Her mind isn't open to any viewpoints but her own. But no one that I could find had ever sort of made it lyrical. So that's how this lyric started. I wanted to make it lyrical because the perception of these phrases needs to be corrected or reversed. And making it lyrical is a way to make it stick. To force me to make it as succinct as possible so it can be kind of a phrase, a buzz phrase. It's like how you remember when leftists figured out that lied and died rhymed, and therefore they could put out the notion that American citizens had perished because of George W. Bush and not because of Al-Qaeda. It's sort of the same thing, except I think mine has a bit more truth to it. So that's how it started. This line, open your mind and think exactly like me, sort of occurred to me first. And I thought that was the better of the two lines, so leave it second so it becomes kind of the punchline. And if you're going to go after phrases that have been hijacked, you might as well go after the false notion of one's fair share. So in the middle eight here, or the bridge really, I tried to get in another one with that lyric, I will steal from what you've earned so we don't have to do our share. And this all went down really quickly, and so it's relatively new. So I don't know if it's going to stand the test of time the way I'm sure some of my other songs will. It's about the closest thing I'm ever going to come to political comedy music, which I guess is really popular for some reason. For me, it's a little bit on the nose, too much on the nose, I think. But maybe it's the gateway drug, for people who like that kind of stuff, to get into some of my other stuff. I kept hearing the break beat that I'm using here. And I didn't know that it was a song from the 70s called Ashley's Roach Clip, and has been used in 1,000 songs, most notably, Milli Vanilli's Girl You Know It's True. I'm ashamed that I know that. But I kept hearing that sort of beat and how tightly it locked everything together in a song like this. Not knowing at the time what it was or where I remembered it from, I just built a beat similar to it, and I put a lot of processing on it so it sounded vaguely electronic and overdriven. Toward the end of mixing, I ended up putting some of a cleaner version of it back in there so I could have it both thick and distorted and crisp and detailed. I'm very proud of the fact that I hit that quiet vocal part with no help from any sort of pitch correction software whatsoever. That little octave part when everything stops with the acoustic guitar. That was one of those little happy little moments in the vocal sessions where I'd nailed it first take and didn't have to do anything to it. It doesn't happen as often as I would like. Okay, so title track, The Solution is the Problem. This is meant to be the thing that ties it all together. I wrote the first verse and the choruses a long time ago, and searched for a long time for the right sentiment for the rest of it. My time in South Carolina brought it out of me, really. It's really sort of the serious flip side to I Will Love You If You Let Me. It doesn't cover every situation that I could classify as fitting into the theme, but since everything is social now, everything is about relationships now, so I think a lot of it can be applied widely to more than the boy-girl relationship it talks about explicitly. A lot of this got left for last minute because it was always supposed to be a lone acoustic guitar and a singer backed by an orchestra. So there weren't any bass parts or electric guitar parts, no drums or anything. And of course the orchestra isn't real, but boy, the writing of the parts sure were. A lot of drafts, a lot of experiments, a lot of tweaking with different articulations, feels, sample sets. This is the most complex sampler work on the album, and probably on anything I've ever done. I like string parts that are a little dark, a little discordant. I have some blue notes in them, those almost wrong intervals that give you goosebumps. So I spent a lot of time, even after all the other recording was done, trying to get this part right. If the album is a story, then this is the soliloquy where the protagonist is, beaten down and discouraged by what he sees around him, and sort of half-heartedly, sort of reciting the rules he believes he now has to live by. And now with social media, a big part of conservative activism, the lyric really isn't just solidly anti-liberal. I'm finding that this unfortunately applies to people of all ideological stripes. Like I said about only being able to reach someone like Michelle Malkin if I called her, the C word. And that's frankly really sad. The lyric starts with a fallacy, be yourself. That has always been the worst advice I have ever been given. I'm an imperfect person, and I always will be, just like everyone else. And I don't understand why people don't get that. A lot of people seem to expect that I'll say the right thing at the right time always, that I'll never make mistakes, that I'll never get angry, that I'll never get emotional, that I'll give them exactly what they need at exactly the right time. Of course, the only people who can appear so perfect are those who maliciously sort of pretend to be perfect. I think one of the lines central to the whole theme is in I Will Love You If You Let Me, the line that says, I think you'd rather have my honest mistakes than his willful carelessness. No, his willful carelessness or his willful manipulation or his willful desire to appear perfect, so you'll do what he says, And there's also a line in here that's based on something I heard Rush Limbaugh say years ago that it always stuck with me. He was talking about what he calls the quote-unquote chickification of boys in modern America. He said that if a boy is hurting, they want to change the boy. But if a girl is hurting, they want to change the world. And he's right. I've seen this all my life, and I don't know what's worse, the sexism that brings someone to a point where they say women can't make it unless the government helps them, or the women who are comforted by a notion like that and buy into it. But both are causing a lot of pain and suffering, and that's certainly a solution that is a problem. I had wanted to use the album title and theme previously, But until this track was done to my satisfaction, I couldn't. Even if the album sounded wildly differently, this would be still the soliloquy, 3/4 of the way through. This is sort of the linchpin of the whole thing, essentially. And in the last verse here, I quote Amazing Grace, but turned on its head into sort of a secular hymn for the insecure. We've no less days to hide behind our cliches than when we first begun. I think it can be seen as a statement about a relationship with God being a strong reminder that we need to be humble and treat each other with respect and at least compassion. And the rewording of it demonstrates in a sort of satirical way how it's co-opted. But it didn't start that way. It just began as what I thought was a great sounding line. It really started when at some point in my mind I started hearing that lyric from Amazing Grace over that part of the song, and I don't know why. I didn't go searching for that, and then I realized it kind of needed to be twisted to fit in this description of this new world order, run by the loud and insecure. I'm using so many sampler patches here, it was getting to the point where I couldn't even run the string session on my quad-core i7 laptop without it constantly stuttering and stopping. One of the libraries is smaller sections of strings. There's 2 sets per patch and 2 patches with different performers and instruments per section. So there's 4 sections of violin, 4 sections of viola, 4 sections of cello, and 4 sections of double bass. Then on top of that, there's a set of French horns that are doing a lot of the tight intervals, the suspensions in the middle. There's a patch of cymbals and cymbal swells, timpani and timpani rolls, a bass drum, and a flute that accentuates the part under the middle 8. It got to a point where I was tweaking the parts in sections, like just strings or just percussion, and working on them separately so that I could listen to the session in real time. And then bouncing them out separately into a second session just to mix. So let's just say I'm happy it's done.
No one is safe from being ripped apart by her cutting remarks.
Now we get into Alera here. My wife hates this song, and it sucks because everybody else really likes it, so I'm in a tough spot. People have asked me where this sample is from. It was a record set released in the 50s by some preacher turned psychologist, and I'm not entirely even sure if it relates to the song anymore at this point, but it's always been there and it's always sounded good to me there. It's almost embarrassing to tell you that Alera was written about a young woman who I thought was interested in me, but it turned out that I was just being used for a random hookup. When 2 people go into something and they have different ideas of what it is, and there's no time to communicate them, who talks about long term on a first date unless you're 38 and twice divorced and just sick of wasting time, But if you go into it, if 2 people go into it with different ideas, not only is one of them going to be disappointed, but the person who just wanted the hookup can paint the other person as some clingy creep who doesn't know how the world works today if you question their lack of a value system. I know how the world works. I'm just trying to hang on to how it should work, The lyrics are a little vague. I always thought maybe I didn't make the point I wanted to in that first verse, which is not necessarily that she was pretty for a nice girl, but that she wasn't a nice girl, and I didn't think she fit the stereotype of, the smoking hot heartbreaker that her personality and actions were trying to pull off. Pretty enough to be a nice girl, and nothing more was really what I was trying to say. Anyway, the music is really brooding, because at this point back in like 2003, this is when I was really starting to feel like there was absolutely no going back, and I was going to have to exist in this world where love and sex are the same thing, and gossip is more important than facts, and you do everything out of order, and everybody's just in it to get their jollies and move on. I think I could have been in denial up to that point because 2003 sounds like way late to make that observation. And it wasn't just her. This was the example that happened to me at the time. It was happening all over. It was happening to my friends. You were seeing it on stories on the internet and whatnot. So I have sort of compared the acoustic guitar riff in this to Days of the New. I never listened much to Days of the New, but they really did the heavy acoustic alternative thing very well. And they're by far the closest thing, that this riff reminds me of. I was also getting into an Icelandic post-rock band called Siaros at the time, and that's where this falsetto lyric comes from. I wanted to try something like that, having just gotten into what they called the Parentheses album, the 2002 album from Siaros. Lyrically and stylistically, it's kind of like two parts of the same person talking, or like the low vocals are me and the high ones are a Greek chorus or something. The first ever demo of this song, which I recorded in 2003, didn't have the heavy ending on it. The heavy ending was suggested to me by a friend who noticed the brooding anger and resentment for what the world around me was becoming, and suggested that it just blow up in the end, just sort of like the pressure valve fails, So it blows up at the end now, and it's actually one of my favorite things ever. So thanks, whoever suggested that. It was hard to figure out where to put Alera on the album. It's a great opener and a great closer, but I already had openers and closers for the album. Moving to Silence was better in this context as an opener, and the closer was supposed to be Occupied, and it still kind of is, but I put something else in there too. The best I could do in terms of sequencing this was to decide that the discoveries that our protagonist or our narrator or our main character, whatever, makes in the title track is leading to anger. And then that anger broods for a while, and then it builds, and then it explodes. So I was thinking with Occupied behind it, the thinking was, maybe the daily news broadcasts live from Occupy protests are over for the most part, but we're occupied on so many levels, from institutionalized racism, sexism, and homophobia masquerading as left-wing social programs, all the way to people in our own movement who say we need to take back the culture with things like music and art, but they never act on their statements. While people like me wait, in complete agreement with no way to reach out to them. I think the album represents me saying my piece, but understanding that it doesn't necessarily change the world one bit. The little bend in this riff to that discordant open string is kind of a little homage to King's X. Their guitarist does that, and is about the only one who does. It just seems to fit there, and I love the way it rings. The quiet guitar playing that riff right before it blows up, and the first sort of Pink Floyd-y guitar solo previously are from a 2005 version of the song, the first time I'd ever made the effort of recording a professional sounding version, and they just came out really right. This false ending, this is where all other versions of Alera ended, but I always had it in my head that I wanted it to come back and reprise that riff one more time and make a really nice solid end. So after most everything else was recorded, I came back and I did this. Occupied got written really quickly, literally an hour, and really late into things. I was already recording acoustic guitars when I wrote it. The news was all wall-to-wall at the time with this Occupy Wall Street crap, which I thought was asinine. These people wanted you not to keep what you had earned, and they wanted to give it to people who hadn't earned anything. And the way they thought that would be the most effective to express that, I guess, was by defecating on police cars, raping young women, and playing a lot of drums. So here I am watching this thinking, this is ridiculous. Why would anyone do this? And I'm also realizing that they're on TV and how they had staged this in a way that would be quote-unquote newsworthy. So the cable news networks would stay on it 24/7, giving them essentially what they wanted. I've said here before about how on social media I'd have to call Michelle Malkin or Glenn Beck nasty names to get their attention. And how we reward the people who do that by giving them the attention they want by, say, retweeting them or, going on your radio show about how much they suck. Here's this exact idea. And it's scaled to an incredibly scary size for all to see, for everybody to see on Fox and CNN. It's hard not to feel like hard work isn't worth it anymore, I was making the joke for a while that I should occupy Sony Music, but with my luck, after I defecated on a cop car, they'd sign that to a 6-record deal, But I wanted to have some sort of response to this ridiculous thing because I didn't know how long it was going to last, and it was another opportunity, like with Follow Me, to speak to some of the hypocritical things that are ordinarily the subject of song lyrics. It started just as simply as it starts, They tell us we hate them, that hatred is evil, then celebrate how much they hate us. And it sort of went from there. And here, coming into the second verse, we sort of reprise the idea of the solution is the problem. And it's another great example, I think, of the solution being the problem. If we fight fire with fire, if we go out there and do the same evil, ignorant crap that they're doing, we're no better. But the other option, like the misguided people who say, what would Jesus do? And they don't realize that Jesus would fight until somebody executed him. And that we can't do that either. These morons aren't worth martyring ourselves over. But I found it interesting that I felt like we didn't have sort of any options to oppose this, and that these protests were sort of designed to be foolproof for them. Like, for example, they'd go out to wherever everybody was meeting and start throwing stuff at cops and provoking them, knowing full well that what they wanted was to be dragged away in handcuffs while the news cameras rolled. When there's an advantage to breaking the law, a criminal is kind of invincible. So, this guy gets arrested, that was his goal, and the normal psychological effect of police presence as a deterrent no longer works. And yes, I did say revolution is trendy and trending. I think that's really the only sort of product-specific internet language on the album. I tried to keep it generic prior to that, but I just couldn't resist. I must have recorded 9 or 10 guitar parts for this that were all playing essentially the same thing, but using all the different sounds I had set up for the album. The Marshall Plexi type sounds, the Vox AC30 sort of U2 sounds. There's even a pretty little clean arpeggio in there with that sparkly single coil sound that I've been using forever. In the end, though, I recorded 2 metalish guitar tracks, more of a dual rectifier Mesa Boogie type sound. And that's primarily what you hear, because when the 9 or 10 guitar tracks got big, they also got really messy, and it started to sound like crap. So they're all in there, but mixed significantly lower than I had originally intended. This is the gang vocalists again, me, Dave Neslick, Scott Cole, Laura Hoppel, and Lauren Young. And I just wanted this to end big and with a mass of people, saying we're occupied. As it was arranged, it was supposed to end cold after we sing We're Occupied 4 times. But I ended up with a little more time at the end than I thought I would, because I pulled a song called Gone, which will appear on a forthcoming record, because it was just one too many slow, dark, minor key ballads, and it was affecting the album's pacing. So now I had time at the end to fill. Used to be you could release 45 minutes of music because of the limitations of vinyl and the cost of tape, but now a CD holds almost twice that, and we've seen the average length of an album is sort of approaching 80 minutes. And so when I looked down and saw that it was just getting just over 60 minutes, I knew I was kind of in trouble. And I always wonder how I write such long songs to the point where people complain about the length, and then I barely have enough to call it an album when all is said and done. I think Don't Wait was only like 54 minutes, 52 minutes, and I was a little disappointed by that. So I have some instrumental, atmospheric guitar stuff in the vein of Don't Wait and Felix Culpa that I'm kind of sitting on. I want this album to be out first before I work on any of that. But one of the things that was done, done, that didn't need any modification except to shorten it a little, was this track, which really didn't have a name. And I think we're calling it Real Hope, barring a better last-minute suggestion. I really do have trouble naming the instrumental stuff because it's not like you can just fall back on whatever the hook is or the lyric and just call it that. And I don't know that Real Hope is one of the best song titles I've ever come up with. But I was trying to express the fact that after being occupied and after realizing like the protagonist or the narrator of the record in The Solution is the Problem, understands that the world doesn't work the way he wants it to, and there's very little he can do about it, and then he expresses anger, sort of an Alera, and then it almost acceptance in Occupied. I thought that the next step in that telling of our story is that you're down so low that hope is all you have. And I didn't want the album to just end on a very dark, sort of discordant, minor key, sad thing. And I understand that we're not in a really happy position, but it's just sort of a warm, pretty thing, as sort of a tribute to people for whom, they only have real hope left. Not the hope that was sold to us as a political slogan, or not, I'm doing so well, I hope I get that bonus so I can get the new iPhone or whatnot. But people who are like, I hope I can pay my bills, I hope I can buy enough food, I hope I can find a job, and so that's kind of where that comes from. And I recorded this sometime in late 2008. I had just come off promoting the Deluxe remastered edition of Felix Culpa, and I had done a live performance of Summer Came Without Her with acoustic guitars and bass. Summer Came Without Her was written in an open D tuning with no third, so D-A-D-A-A-D. And it was difficult to keep acoustic guitars in that tuning because you had to tune the very fragile G a whole step up to A, and I was breaking a lot of strings, putting a lot of stress on the necks. I was also getting into Devin Townsend at the time, who uses an open C major tuning for most of his stuff, which is C, G, C, G, C, E. And I was experimenting with going down to C anyway, so I just took the Summer Came Without Her tuning and brought it down a whole step, so now it's C, G, C, G, G, C. And when I did the acoustic performance of Summer, I used that tuning, and I really dug how it sounded. When I bought the acoustic guitars that I have now, that I used on the album, I made sure to check that I wouldn't get a lot of buzzing or anything if they were tuned down, because I was going through that down-tune phase, and I was expecting to record stuff in open C or B tunings. And I really loved how rich this open C tuning sounded on these guitars. And so while I was rehearsing for that with two other musicians who didn't know the song, I had started noodling around, and I'd found this little sequence or arpeggio or whatever you want to call it, and it sort of became the basis for this experimental little piece. I just looped a recording of it, made it like an ostinato phrase, and started to build something over it. And then it comes in here with a lead, which I think is just pretty. And the intent with all this spacey stuff is just to be pretty, and warm, and just sort of give you that. It's sort of just a comfort feeling. I'm sure somebody with a diploma on the wall, will say that I'm trying to return to the womb with this kind of stuff. And maybe I am, that sort of warm and safe feeling. That's what this sort of thing does for me, I think. Well, the pretty stuff anyway, not like 9/12 or Between the Shot and the Fall. It's sort of more cinematic horror type stuff. But this sort of very pretty stuff I like because it's just warm and comforting. And so that's why it's not very complicated. There's no virtuoso playing in here. It doesn't need to be that. It just sort of needs to be pretty. And I had sort of hoped that for new listeners and for people who were more interested in the more traditional rock pop songwriting that's on the rest of the album, that this would sort of demonstrate in a non-intrusive way that I do more than that. And it maybe be a gateway to Don't Wait or Felix Culpa. And like I said, I have some more of this stuff that I'm sitting on, so I could finish Solution first, that I will put out at some point. And I think it's a nice introduction to that stuff, so you don't feel like you're going into something new that you haven't already experienced in some way. So eventually, this does what Occupied does. It folds back onto itself, and all you hear is a very processed, very thick, very dark sort of version of itself. And I really just did that the same way as Occupied, by fading out the tracks, but at the same time feeding them into a bus with a bunch of stuff on it, phasing, chorus, delay, reverb, distortion, and just letting it live there for a few minutes, sort of creating its own environment, and then it sort of fades away. So that's the album. You could say I'm pleasantly surprised it's done. These things are such massive undertakings that when you do them yourself, that you almost can't allow yourself to believe that it'll ever be done to your own satisfaction. And I am such a perfectionist that even though I could have released this months ago, I wouldn't have been able to enjoy it, because you hear more mistakes and more shortcomings than other people will, because as the creator of the content, I know what it's supposed to sound like, and I know how close I've come or how close I've not come. You as the listener don't necessarily know how far away it is from what I wanted it to be. So was this album quote-unquote done 3 or 4 months ago? Maybe. It could have been. But I figured that since new media is still sort of a wasteland controlled by people who hate me for my value system, and that I wasn't just trying to be the next Gaga or Bieber, that I should take the time and polish this as much as I could, because who knows how long I'll be able to continue doing music. I mean, I hope this isn't it, but there's a point where you have to say, everything I do isn't working. And there's also a point where you have to say there are so many things I have to be good at other than music to get to the point where other people will hear my music. And I'm sort of an idealist. I'm a free market guy and an idealist. I don't want anybody to vouch for me if they don't like my stuff. I don't want to have to beg opportunities off of people. I just want everybody to hear this for themselves and decide if they like it or not. And if they don't, it's okay. One thing that disappoints me is that there are people out there, not just in our communities, but in the music scene as a whole, who, when they hear you complaining about not being able to reach enough people to get a grassroots thing going, they mistake it for a problem with the quality of the work. And I know I don't know how to do the marketing stuff, but I know the product is solid. And they'll say, well, send me a copy of your music and I'll tell you. Well, they essentially offer to tell you what's wrong with it. But there's nothing wrong with it. There are formulas. There really are formulas to make something that is so generic, so stupid, that it'll be a hit single. And why would I want to create product I don't believe in and try and push it into an oversaturated market? People say, well, that's how you make millions. And I say, well, that's not how Apple made millions. That's not how Google made millions. And when you're marketing at a largely conservative, largely capitalist audience, it's difficult, because there are two types of capitalists: people who understand that the quality of the product is important, and people who believe that you should just watch trends, follow fads, and capitalize. And that's difficult with any sort of art, because art is, by definition, subjective. It's personal and it's universal at the same time, and it has to evoke an emotional response. But there's a lot of people who think that because crappy pop music sells well, that it's naturally and automatically what everyone wants, and it's not. Music also, there's a time to market factor. Things still need to be written, practiced, refined, recorded, produced, manufactured, and held back while a marketing campaign does what it does. And so when it comes to fads, by the time your average person has realized something is popular or trendy, the time to create more of it, most of the time, has passed. So there are a lot of people to thank, of course, and I'm afraid I'm going to miss most of them. I got a lot of them when I mentioned the live stream regulars earlier, so thank you guys again for seeing me through this. My wife Rebecca, of course, has been wonderfully supportive and tolerant of long recording sessions and numerous takes of horrible sounding singing. But mostly, if people are going to force the issue on new media and social media that friendships and relationships are so important, then I want to stick to thanking the live stream regulars, who I consider real friends, who watched me put this album together and supported me every step of the way. You guys are awesome, and I'm so glad that I had you there. It was a lot of fun, and I hope we get to do it again real soon. So here comes that fade out. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you play the crap out of it, and I hope you tell your friends about what we did here, because this is what I do, and this is what I'm good at. So maybe you can help me remind people that even though I'm not a whiz at marketing or social media or able to keep more than about 400 Twitter followers, and God knows how many are spam bots, there is something that I'm good at. And if we can just get it in front of them, I'm confident they'll love what I do. Thanks for listening. See you soon.
So much sadness and depression, so much anger and despair. Shattered hopes and dreams surround you. The outcome isn't fair. We did it your way to begin with. Your so-called wisdom got us here. I shouldn't have to tell you all this. Just let me be clear. I will love you if you let me. I will be there when you call. I will love you if you let me. No, I won't let you fall. No, 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 no. I'm rough around the edges. It makes me nervous every day. But I would be there if you'd let me. But if you don't, I have to go away. I would love you if you let me. I would be there when you call. I will love you if you let me. I'll never let you fall. I've been right here this whole time, reaching out with no success. I think you'd rather have my honest mistakes than its willful carelessness. Whoa. I'm so strong, I've done so much growing up, man. All I get is left behind. Things you say I do, not so far away from what you've done to us all. Rewards you get for your insecurities, though. Mighty stumble and they fall. Deep desire to become the victim. You need it to rise above. You move as one in your unholy union and kill everything I love. You just concern yourself with the here and now. Well, light a fire on the earth. Your fear and judgment and your prejudice self become the measure of what I'm worth. Can we be free? All the hatred you bring me, why can't we be free to be who we want to be? Can we be free? The moments you have spent destroying me is like a river of disease surrounding me. There's nothing positive to what you've done now. Maybe that's why I cling to God and my gun. The masses bend to your will. They sing your torch song. But strength in numbers don't make it less wrong. So who's the victim now? So tied up in your selfishness that you can't even see. What you think you are, that's what you've made me. Why can't we free? All the hatred you bring me, why can't we be free to be who we want to be? Can't we be free? Destroying me is like a river of I'll become you soon enough. Can we be free from all the hatred you bring me? Can we be free to be who we want to be? Can we be free? The moments you have spent destroying me is like a river of disease surrounding me. You'd cry yourself to sleep, pass up any opportunity, retreat like the war is lost. Escape no matter what the cost. You'd stare across the crowded room and wait for my eyes to catch you. You'd leave and you dream of me and cry for what cannot be. But you'd never tell me you'd never tell me the days filled with this blessed love. There's something that's building up. You can't get your comfort back, but the pressure is rising fast. But you'd never tell me You'd never tell me. You'd never tell me. You'd never tell me. Distance is so much farther now. I hurt you and I don't know how. You told all your friends in confidence, and you bowed for your fucking audience. But you never told me you never told me and now we're both alone, too far gone to ever make it home. You'll admit you played a part. You'll regret what tore us apart, but you'll never tell me. You'll never tell me. You'll never tell me.
I don't mean to get all autobiographical, but this song's about my wife.
million years, never thought I'd find myself here. It wasn't supposed to be. Realizations I had to come to. When I hit bottom, that's when I found you. And all these ghosts trapped inside our heads, our own worst enemies. Problems too big and the skies are too gray. I look at you and it all melts away. And I don't care if it's hard as hell, I will walk beside you still. Through the darkness and through the rain, I can, I must, I will. 'Cause I want to be. Yeah, I want to be with you. Don't look back where you've been. Turn and look where we will go. I know it hurts to start over once more. I promise it won't be the same as before. And all the people who had our hearts left broken pieces behind. But we found that we've now become one. They fit together and we've become one. And I don't care if it's hard as hell, I will walk beside you still. Through the darkness and through the rain, I can, I must, I will. 'Cause I want to be. Yeah, I want to be with you.
I wrote this recently after having an argument on Twitter with an idiot. Lived a life that made me proud. Took me farther from the crowd. Punished for my honesty, for my love of my country. These things I think are not allowed. She lives a life of vanity. She talks in sound bites from TV. She's kind and reverent, enlightened and so tolerant. She'll kill you if you disagree. She says, open your heart and love my bigotry. Open your mind and think exactly like me. Don't you know the only way you'll be free is if you follow me. She says, your ideas are not that good, 'cause I don't get all the stuff I could. You were born a certain way, so you should work and pay, so I can have the things I want. And I'll attack you if you fight, because you shouldn't have the right. I'll punish you for honesty, 'cause right now this is my country. I hate you 'cause you're on the right. Says, open your heart and love my bigotry. Open your mind and think exactly like me. Don't you know the only way you'll be free is if you follow me? Is if you follow me. And I will steal from what you've earned, so we don't have to do our share. And I will call it charity. It's only just, it's only fair. Said, open your heart and love my bigotry. Open your mind and think exactly like me. Don't you know the only way you'll be free is if you follow me? Is if you follow me. Is if you follow me. Thank you. Thanks everybody for being here. We're doing some of these, just iron out some bugs in the live rig before a couple big shows here. Of course, as you can see, my playing has some bugs that need to be ironed out too. This is a song called "The Solution is the Problem." Be yourself, she said, and make
all will love you. Be yourself and they will come. It's what I did. All I saw was sorrow. Sick of crying, now I know. Act the same as everybody else and hide anything that's weird. Disconnect and play on their fears, and you'll suddenly revere. The solution is the problem. The pollution of the world. The solution is the problem. Look at what we have become. Subsisting with all our temporary fixes till trouble do us part. Strength is weakness and fear is confidence. Your wounded mind betrays your heart. The solution is the problem. The pollution of the girl. The solution is the problem. Look at what we have become. Honesty is a lonely policy with so many liars, flags unfurled. If a boy is hurting, then change the boy, but if a girl is hurting, change the world. The solution is the problem. The pollution of the world. The solution is the problem. Look at what we have become. And when we've been here 10,000 years and bright shining like the sun, with no less days to hide behind our cliches than when rain first begun.
Take, for example, the woman who is unduly critical. No one is safe from being ripped apart by her cutting remarks. She always seems to have some sarcastic comment to make. Everything she says belittles someone or something. The result? People avoid her.
does serve a purpose.
Tell us we hate, that hatred is evil, then celebrate how much they hate us. Then tell us to open our hearts and our minds and close theirs to all opposition. We pay for their protests, sanction their envy, feed them, clothe them, and give them the freedom. They teach their children that we are the problem. The cycle repeats till we're all at the bottom. We pay the bill, we pay it all. We give them rope to hang the providers of it all. Solution's the problem. Fire with fire makes us as evil as the ones they admire. The other option, Christ-like direction, just gets us murdered with no resurrection. The gathering masses, attached like a cancer, cause held aloft by politician and actor. All hope of redemption is violently ending, just because revolution is trendy and trending. You have created what you hate. It's out of control and I fear it's going to be too late. We're occupied. We're occupied. Tell us we hate hatred and zeal. Tell